Hello and welcome to episode 39 of Generations Apart. I'm Jay.
And I'm Robbie.
And on today's episode, we're taking a slightly different approach. We're going to be talking all about gaming, but we're going to do various topics across the news and media, as well as a little rant from yours truly towards the end. So we're going to touch on Ubisoft's recent controversial inclusion of anti-piracy tools in its most recent release. We're going to touch on Microsoft finally closing the Activision acquisition, not easy for me to say. And we're going to talk about a new PS5, as well as I mentioned, a small rant from yours truly. But before we get into that, Robbie, what's new with you?
So this week, just a kind of a random thing that I saw scrolling through my Instagram feed. I follow a page on Instagram called Metaverse. Quite topical for our podcast. Good research, I think, for what we're doing. And they had a post that I thought was really interesting. We talk about AI quite a lot on the podcast, but it's kind of two worlds that I hadn't really consider as kind of melding together. And it's the idea of AI wearables. So devices that are AI enabled that you would wear all of the time. And whether it's, there's a couple of examples they have in this post and I can talk through them. And just I wanted to get your hot take on whether it's kind of creepy or whether it's going to be useful for people in the future. So
okay.
The first one, it's a wearable that it's kind of like a badge on your lapel, or you just kind of pin it to your shirt. And what it does is it projects a screen onto your hand. It's something called Humane, founded by former Apple employee Imran Chaudhry. The company is building an AI wearable that projects an interface onto your hand. The Humane pin recently spotted at a Paris Fashion Week and is unveiling slated for November. So
what is it projecting though? So just a screen with information on, or?
Yeah, I guess. And the image that is, for those who are watching on YouTube, the image is, it shows someone has the hand up and the projected screen on their hand, and it's suggesting that they may be able to accept or reject calls, as the example, I guess, that's in this image. But not much details at all, actually, on this article. Probably something to follow up on afterwards. But I don't know. It's kind of a cool wearable.
Is that an AI wearable, or is that really AI, or is it just a smart wearable, a smart projector lapel pin? Doesn't feel radically different. I mean, I guess I suppose to a degree your smartwatch has got AI in it, or machine learning, or whatever you want to, however you want to categorize it. But I wouldn't consider my watch to be an AI watch.
Yeah,
but it does the same thing.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think out of all the ones that are in this list, this one is the least AI, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to say, is this just AI being used because it's a buzzword at the moment?
Probably, and, actually.
I mean, AI is going to be in everything in some way, shape or form, isn't it, going forward?
That's a good point. But, and this is just like it's one of these Instagram posts that's kind of a surface level article almost. There's not really much detail in here, so probably worth investigating. But I just thought kind of diving into the idea of AI wearables was cool. Anyway, so that's the first one. The second one is a kind of a necklace that's called Rewind. Rewind.ai is the platform that you can buy it from. And it's been teased as a $60 neck-worn AI pendant that is designed to record all of your conversations and transfer them securely to your smartphone. This is intended to create an easily searchable database of your entire life.
That sounds creepy.
Right?
I was thinking, what's creepy about the previous one? That's I mean, that's going to get some compliance teams backs up, isn't it? I'm not sure about that one.
Imagine.
I don't know if I need that. Yeah.
What would you use it for? Imagine if you could document every conversation you've ever had.
It feels like it'd be great for some sort of undercover police operation, doesn't it? Yeah. You know, instead of having a wire, you just wear a necklace that records everything.
Yeah. Or winning arguments or something with your friends and be like, you said this. No, you said this. And then you can just be like, well, why don't we rewind, find out.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
A bit weird, isn't it?
Interesting. Yeah. Did they say what any of these things cost, by the way, or is it too early for that?
This one says $60.
$60. Oh.
Which, if you think about it, I don't know how AI well, I suppose it is. Is it AI? Because this one, I'm guessing, is just a microphone on a necklace that is just recording you, transferring the recordings to your phone, and then it's transcribed.
Is it recording constantly, or is there a trigger? Is it your voice that triggers it? Is it
all the time?
You know, so it's recording. So that's going to be really boring, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you're just sat scrolling on the toilet, scrubbing through your various social feeds.
Yeah.
It's going to be very uncomfortable listening to hear that back. And who's going to go back over 24 hours of audio to try and find that one moment? I don't know.
Yeah.
Someone must want it.
And it's not unique as well. So this rewind it is just one in this kind of series of suggested AI wearables. But there's another one which seems to be a very similar thing. It's one called Tab, and it's a short clip of young entrepreneur Avi Schiffman has introduced a $600 Tab, another neck worn pendant wearable that listens in on all of your conversations.
So why is that one $600 versus the $60 of the previous one?
Great question.
What's that do differently?
I don't know. I
don't want any of these things, Robbie, I'll be honest.
No.
It's a no from me. Yeah.
And then there's another suggestion as well in this article. So this whole Instagram post is about they've called it the AI wearables arms race. So everyone seems to be rushing to this space. It doesn't really look like there's many use cases as far as I can see, but everyone seems to be wanting to be on it early. But Johnny Ives is another one apparently who's hoping to bring out what he said as the iPhone of AI, which is presumably some kind of wearable. Which again, what could that be?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I said I don't want any of these, and I don't. But I guess actually they're not that different in many respects to the smart glasses we were talking about a couple of episodes ago that Meta have released. Those have got microphones and speakers and cameras. So not only can they record everything you hear or say, they can record everything you see.
It actually suggests that in the text of the post as well. So referencing the release of the new Meta Ray-Bans that are going to be AI powered and recording conversations, and how that seems to be something that everyone's rushing to in the space. So
yeah, and I did say, I believe at the end of that episode that I was interested in the glasses, so I can't really sit here and say that a voice recording pendant is super, super creepy. Although I will say that there was no part of me wanted the smart glasses because they could record my every conversation. But the fact that they could do that actually makes them slightly unnerving,
right?
And makes me reconsider that. But I suppose, again, what's to stop my watch or phone being hijacked to do exactly the same thing? I suppose they're all just as capable, aren't they?
In theory, they already are.
All the right hardware. Yeah, exactly. They already are. Well, wonderful. What a great way to start the episode.
Completely random. So
it creeps us all out about the Big Brother complex now. But
what about you, Jay? What's new?
So I made a Prime Day acquisition.
Nice.
So it was recently Prime Day. I made a couple actually, but one that is relevant to this episode because it's gaming related. For those watching along, I'll sort of hold it up to my face. This is the Backbone 1, I think it's called. And nice little snappy noise for the microphone there. This is effectively
gaming ASMR.
Some gaming ASMR. This is a video game controller for your smartphone. So these aren't new. This isn't me trying to pretend I've bought some sort of cutting edge tech here.
Yeah,
been around for a couple of years now, and I've been kind of looking to buy one for quite a while. There are a couple of companies in the game. Backbone are one of the well-known ones. I think Razer have got their own, and I'm sure there's a couple of others. There's also alternatives, sort of much cheaper alternatives, such as the kind of cradles you can buy that your phone can sit in and that will snap onto an Xbox or a PlayStation controller that you can then sync to your device. But this one is, I think it's particularly clever or nicely designed. It's genuinely very comfortable to play with. This one is USB-C, so I bought this one because I've just upgraded to the iPhone 15, which of course now means that I have joined the USB-C revolution.
The master race.
And the master race. Although an interesting story to go with that, which I'll tell you in just a second. They do also do these for Lightning. This is the PlayStation-themed one for those watching along. It's that kind of slightly off-white that the PS5 controllers are. And it has, the old triangle, circle, X and square, instead of the black Xbox version, which has the Xbox face buttons on, which you can also buy. They do exactly the same thing. It's just the colour and the button tags are different, but fundamentally the controller doesn't act any differently. It's got some neat shoulder buttons, it's got all the kind of face buttons you might expect, and it's got a dedicated Backbone button, which is the little orange one.
Nice.
just down here on the right. And when you connect your phone and press that button, it automatically launches the Backbone app, which is meant to be your hub to the different apps that this is useful for. So you can use this for PlayStation 5 Remote Play.
Mm-hmm.
So basically turning your phone into, what have they called it now? The Sony Portal, formerly Project Q, the $200 dedicated streaming device for your remote play needs. It also works for xCloud, and of course it works for all of your Apple Arcade games. You can also use it with your Steam library.
For Steam Remote Play.
Yeah, so it's quite versatile. It's not flawless, and that's not entirely the hardware provider's fault. So the first thing that I'll mention is when I first got this and plugged it in, the iPhone didn't recognise it. I was like, you're joking. Come on, what's this? It specifically said on the listing that it did support iPhone 15, but it was having none of it. I did a quick Google, and it was fixable. Basically, I hadn't got the latest firmware on it. Do you want to have a guess how they suggested you fix the firmware?
Plug it into your PC to update it, maybe?
Nope, you can't do that.
Plug it into another device to update it.
Plug it into another device.
No
what
way.
What kind of device you think you needed?
Oh, an Android phone. Love it.
An Android phone. So I had two choices from the website. Yeah. So either I had to find an Android device, which funny enough I don't have, or I could send it back and they would send me a fresher one out the factory that had the relevant firmware on, and I could, wait a few days for that transaction to happen. So I basically 9 o'clock on the night that I received this, went round to a friend's who has an Android, and basically pleaded for support and connected it to their phone and had to update it before bringing it home and using it on my iPhone.
That's crazy.
I know, but it works and it's really good. I will call out a couple of limitations in case someone thinks they're going to go and buy one. So it's great for gaming. It works really, really well. PS5 Remote Play is a bit sketchy. It's not the smoothest experience. Now, I will say my home Wi-Fi is pretty strong. It's pretty good setup. It's not flawless by any stretch. And my PS5 is currently wireless. And I think the recommendation, or one of the recommendations from PlayStation, is that you hardwire it. So I am in the process of getting another mesh satellite to wire that up. So I'm going to fix that problem. But Remote Play is not completely perfect. Xbox, Game Pass, and playing the xCloud games, because of the differences between Microsoft and Apple, and Microsoft's stance and Apple's stance on including the xCloud as a dedicated app in the App Store, it means that the xCloud experience doesn't work as well as it could. So you have to basically leave the Backbone app, go and find your xCloud web link, which is basically what Microsoft encourages you to do, and then load your game and play as normal. And then it works. And it works very, very well.
Does it actually work well on the web? I have always been curious.
No, it works. You wouldn't know the difference. It works very, very well. I'm sure an optimized app would be better, but you genuinely wouldn't notice the difference. All the local Apple Arcade stuff works really, really well. But as I said, the PlayStation and Xbox, the main two experiences you're probably buying this thing for, are not as seamless as they could be for different reasons. PlayStation and Remote Play is your home network. xCloud, unfortunately, because it comes down to the fact that we don't have a dedicated app for that on the App Store, which means that the Backbone app doesn't recognize the browser shortcut that you're encouraged to create by Microsoft as a way to sort of connect or bring that into the Backbone experience. So it just feels a little bit disjointed. And I don't think that is the same on Android, where the xCloud app does exist. So perhaps on an Android device, these things are slightly better. But that was my purchase. I got it on a Prime deal, so I think I paid £75 for it. They're normally £100.
It's not bad.
So it was a decent discount. Yeah, I wouldn't have done it otherwise, to be honest. It's not something I was desperate for. But with my new phone and the new gaming capabilities coming to iPhone 15, I thought that was quite a nice pairing.
You're going to play the Resident Evils on it when it comes out?
I'm tempted to get one of them, although they are full whack, sort of £50-60, I think, from what's been touted. So I'm not sure. Maybe I'll wait for something to come down in price, or to have some sort of a deal. I might buy one as a one-off just to try it out.
I didn't realise that they were the full PlayStation versions that were ported to iPhone. I thought that they were like a bin down, like PC port or something, but no, it's the full PlayStation version, PlayStation 4, I believe, versions of the games.
They're doing the Resident Evil remake, aren't they? The Resident Evil 4 remake, was that on PS4?
I
I thought it was PS5 only. I'm not sure. I could be wrong with
maybe
that.
it is then. Maybe just a bin-down version or like a downscaled. But
either way, I thought that would be interesting to try out the new gaming capabilities of the Pro Max. And it works, it looks really good. It fits nicely in the device. It's a good size. So, it's a nice little setup, an alternative perhaps to the Sony official PlayStation Portal. But we'll see.
Much cheaper.
It's much cheaper. Absolutely much cheaper. Yeah,
if you've got an iPhone already, that is.
Well, of course. Well, any smartphone, though, to be honest, will do that. And you don't need a powerful smartphone to run remote play. So, it's pretty straightforward. And talking about, I guess, fancy new games coming to various pieces of hardware, not really forcing the segue here, but Assassin's Creed Mirage is coming to iPhone, so it's relevant. But you wanted to talk a bit about Ubisoft and some naughty business they've been up to with the release of Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, it's a bit of a cheeky one, actually. So let me pull up the article. Actually, you sent me this one. It's Assassin's Creed Mirage is now launched. It was launched on the 5th of October. And it's been quite a popular game, looking at some of the reviews. It's Ubisoft's best game of the year, I guess, in terms of their releases. So, yeah, by all means, kind of a success. But there was quite a cheeky thing that they did for PC gamers. Only on PC gamers, not on the console versions of the games.
Which is the reason why I sent it to you.
Yeah. Just to rub it on my face.
It's not going to affect me at all. Yeah.
Just to rub it on my face. Yeah. So on day one, on a day one patch that was sent out to the PC game version, which brought in a kind of toolkit, the anti-piracy toolkit called De Novo, which apparently, and I wasn't aware of this bit of software before, is quite a controversial bit of anti-piracy software that comes with games. And the reason it's quite controversial is for a lot of games that are intended to be offline, it forces you to have some kind of online connection to check and validate the licenses and things like that. But also, it's been touted as having a negative impact on performance for some games as well. So, it wasn't in any of the release notes. It wasn't mentioned beforehand. So it's really quite a cheeky thing for Ubisoft to just throw out this anti-piracy software on top of their game for PC users. And it's got, rightfully so, some PC users quite annoyed that was just kind of happened to them and it wasn't really announced.
I think something that I read when I first saw the article was that this isn't necessarily a permanent inclusion. That's been suggested. Apparently where this software has been used before, it's done at launch for a certain period of time to help prevent that sort of initial rush and sort of piracy surge when a game is brand new and everyone's got FOMO and all that good stuff. I think in many cases, most software vendors have patched it out further down the game's life when they're less concerned about, the sort of hordes of copies going live. So I think it's one of those where, from a developer's perspective, I get it. Yeah, it must be really painful, especially for PC, but for any kind of console where piracy. Why can't I say piracy today? Can't develop an intro as well. Where piracy is a concern, because they pump millions of pounds into these things, and people will say big corporates, who cares?
Well, blood, sweat, and tears of individual developers as well.
Well, yeah, but that's it. And a lot of gamers as well, like gaming companies, they don't last long, and they, if they're not clever about how they make their money, they go under. We saw one earlier in the week. I think it was Telltale Games laid a load of people off, and another one has folded. So this is happening all the time. Ubisoft are very big, but they're not infallible. They're not completely bulletproof when it comes to commercial. So, and to be honest, I've had a few failures in the last few big sort of AAA releases. So I can understand them protecting it. I think the issue here is that they've not been honest about it. Yeah. And they've snuck it in because it wasn't in any of the betas from what I can tell. And I guess, again, that's because they don't want to take away from the positivity of the release by having people in the build-up complaining about this.
The irony. I've got to be honest. The backlash of them not announcing it.
I will say, though, I don't think the backlash has been absolutely huge. I sifted this article out a week or so ago and sent it to you. And I haven't heard a lot about it since. It's not something that I've heard lots of noise about. I will say, though, I also haven't heard lots of noise about Ubisoft's latest game. I haven't heard Assassin's Creed getting lots of mentions. It's not in my X feed, as I have to call it now. I'm not seeing lots and lots of people talking about it. I think, as you say, it's been well received, kind of on par with Origins and Odyssey. A lot of people saying it's a return to sort of classic Assassin's Creed.
Yeah,
I'd like to play it, but I've got a backlog of Assassin's Creed games I haven't started.
Yeah,
so I'm not going to go and buy the latest one when I've still got some previous ones to start.
Yeah,
but
I think the interesting part of this is that there must be other anti-cheat, anti-piracy software out there that doesn't have this kind of negative reputation. And, we've seen them on other games, and there's, people don't really complain about it. It's just part of the game. I think perhaps, though, the fact that it's an offline...
easy to get around. I think that's perhaps the problem, isn't it? Is that online check-in the way to make... Is that one of the catches where that's incredibly hard to get around, even if it's inconvenient?
I think it's the impact on the performance of the game, just having it in the background anyway. I think that people complain about, because there's lots of other games that have anti-piracy software on, doesn't impact the game's performance. So I guess from reading, I don't know much about this particular one, Denuvo, but it sounds like people have a specific issue with Denuvo and perhaps not anti-piracy generally. Because, not all PC gamers are pirates, Jay, or criminals, as you might suggest for Android users as well. But yeah, I think it's more specifically the Denuvo itself. Whereas there must be others out there. I wonder if Denuvo is a specific one that Ubisoft usually use. But I suppose that, and it's supposed to be an offline game, so the fact that it requires online connection is really annoying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they'll patch it out at some point.
Yeah,
I sympathise with the developers when it comes to preventing this kind of activity, but I can also understand if you're a genuine purchaser of the game and then you're being affected, that also must be really frustrating. Hopefully at some point we'll find a happy medium where honest citizens can buy a game and developers don't need to penalise them with damaging game-impacting anti-piracy software, but we'll see. Let's move on then to Microsoft, and let's talk about finally the completion of their acquisition of Activision Blizzard King, which is an awfully long name.
I forgot King was in the same acquisition.
Yeah, well, this is what I want to talk about. So we're not going to get into all the detail here and the legal stuff or any of that good stuff. There's loads of information on that circling around the net. I think it's just interesting to talk about, the closure of this chapter and what this now means for Xbox players. 68.7 billion this deal was. And Activision Blizzard, for those who don't know, I guess some of their biggest titles are things like Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, Diablo, but there are loads more as well that I hadn't even considered fall into this. In fact, a few weeks ago, I made a jokey short about Guitar Hero, asking Activision to bring that back. That's also part of Microsoft now. And funnily enough, this isn't the story, but Bobby Kotick, the current CEO, although he's been shipped out because of a lot of history and issues, which we won't get into, he actually teased at a recent in-house event at Activision Blizzard that they were looking at bringing Guitar Hero back. So keep fingers crossed they might be coming back. But a couple of things to talk about. So first of all, this has been a long time in coming, lots of legal battles. They've finally overcome them, and this sort of acquisition is now complete. I don't know if you've seen it, Robbie, but if you haven't, I suggest you watch it afterwards. There's a really nice kind of 90-second YouTube short that they've done. It's like an official trailer welcoming Activision Blizzard King to the Xbox family, and it's these kind of stylized shots from different franchises from both Xbox and from Activision Blizzard. Wow. Lots of sunrises and sort of like positivity. It's really cool, actually. It's really fun. So yeah, we'll put a link to that in the notes. It's part of the article. Have a look at that. I really liked it. It was a really nice way to do it, because this is such a big deal as well. I think people forget that this is the biggest acquisition, I think, in gaming history.
Yeah.
And to be honest, one of the biggest acquisitions in any kind of acquisition history.
Yeah, this is 68 billion?
68 billion. This is huge sums of money.
68.7 billion. That's crazy.
Well, so there's a couple of examples in the article, actually. They talk about other deals Microsoft has done. It's their largest acquisition by far. Their biggest prior to this was 2016 when they purchased LinkedIn for 26 billion.
I always forget they own them as well.
And then in terms of gaming companies, prior to that, when they went on their acquisition spree, they bought Bethesda, because we knew about Starfield, in 2021 for 7.5 billion. So nearly 10 times the price.
That's actually wild.
Yeah. But then when you look at what comes with that purchase, you understand why. So I think you've brought up on screen already the Xbox family now, which is kind of like who's in, who's out. So
it's a great graphic.
It's really good. So yeah, I encourage them to go and check this article out and have a look at this infographic which Microsoft have produced. So under Xbox Game Studios, we've got, I mean, they've been on a buying spree for a while. Some big names here, some smaller ones, things like 343 Industries that do Halo. You've got the teams that did Psychonauts. You've got Mojang, of course, that does Minecraft, because people forget that Microsoft own Minecraft. You've got Obsidian, Playground Games, who do Forza Horizon and are now doing Fable. Rare, which are in there. You've got the Forza team. You've got the brand new quadruple A studio that's doing Perfect Dark. You've got the Coalition that does Gears of War, and a whole host of other ones. Then, of course, you've got Bethesda and everything that sits underneath Bethesda in terms of their game studios and their franchises. So we've got Starfield, Elder Scrolls, Fallout, and a whole load more. Then
they've got Doom and Quake as well in Bethesda. I didn't realise as well. Yeah, absolutely. But then Activision, Blizzard, and King are all separated out for good reason, because they themselves have got loads of stuff underneath them. So Call of Duty has 3 different studios working on it, with Treyarch, Infinity Ward, and Sledgehammer. Then you've got this is the ones that caught me out. So you've got things like Transformers, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, Skylanders, Tony Hawk. Tony Hawk was now owned by Microsoft. Oh, I did know Activision did that. That's right.
Yeah. Well, I knew they'd done it, but I guess it hadn't really clicked. We've already talked about Guitar Hero, and they've got many more. And then you move to Blizzard, and of course, you've got World of Warcraft, which is kind of the big deal there. You've got StarCraft, Overwatch is now part of the Microsoft family.
That's crazy.
Again, many more. And then the one that I guess surprised me, or I guess I didn't realise this was part of the Activision family, because you often hear of Activision Blizzard. I'm not used to hearing Activision Blizzard King.
Yeah.
And you've got to think, well, what does King do? Well, they are really big in the mobile space.
Yes.
So if you are a Candy Crush fan or a Farm Heroes fan, and many more mobile first products, then you're also now part of the Microsoft family. So it's massive.
Huge.
Absolutely massive.
I think actually when I was doing some research on the acquisition itself, the court case was going on, I think they said that they're set to make more money out of Candy Crush alone, I think, than some of the other games from many of the other studios, because I think that's a huge, huge money generator, weirdly.
Well, because a lot of the fuss during the trials was based on predominantly around Call of Duty and PlayStation and the FTC being up in arms about that. There was also a big push on the cloud gaming side, but not really sure how a lot of those firms play into that. Microsoft already had a big play on that space. They've just added more great games to it. Of course, a lot of this stuff you can expect to see come into Game Pass. That's how Microsoft's commitment works. All of Microsoft's first-party studios titles, to date at least, have release day and date on Game Pass, and they tend to bring the back catalogue. They have said for now that the latest Call of Duty and I think the latest Diablo will not be coming immediately to Game Pass. So maybe that'll be the new year. Perhaps we'll see them coming in. But yeah, I mean, the Game Pass library or options that can be in the Game Pass library just got a whole lot bigger.
Wild.
Which is great if you're invested in that space and you enjoy playing your games either on your PC or on your Xbox. So I just thought it was worth calling out and just sort of looking at just how big that acquisition really is, and what that means, for people playing in that space.
Yeah, huge in the gaming news. I don't know. It's hard to even comment on what's going to happen next with all those games. Candy Crush on the Xbox, can you imagine?
I don't know. Will they do that? Who knows? I mean, they're going to benefit from all that mobile expertise with that studio.
Yeah.
Because they don't do a lot of mobile first stuff within Microsoft. You've got a few titles that are mobile friendly. Minecraft is the first one that jumps to mind. Obviously, it's kind of cross console. I think things like when Call of Duty has got its own mobile game as well.
It was mentioned in the Activision banner on that infographic as well. So be able to get some tips on how to generate more money from that through King and things like that.
I mean, they've got to start making some money. I don't think this means, and they have confirmed a deal with PlayStation, haven't they, amongst other hardware providers and game publishers, that they won't keep Call of Duty solely on the Xbox for now. But as for the rest of the franchises, who knows?
Yeah.
There's now a whole lot of new stuff that can be exclusive to Xbox, which will no doubt sort of stoke the fanboys up. But, it's an interesting turn of events.
Yeah.
And we'll see where it goes. I think the big question is, for a lot of people now, is this good for gaming? Some people think it is. Some people think it's not. And I guess as Sony and Microsoft, because they're both guilty of it, although Microsoft have spent by far the bigger sums of money, a lot of these game publishers are now being bought up and becoming sort of first-party studios. Sony, not that long ago, bought Destiny, didn't they? Or the team behind Destiny.
Yeah.
So, they've bought a few themselves. Who knows? Will they go out now and make some big acquisition of their own? Can they afford to?
I think they might have to compete these days. I mean, it's a huge corner of the market that's just been bought.
It's not in our list of topics, but it is worth mentioning that just in the last week or so, Sony have added a whole load of their movie library to their streaming service. So now on the PlayStation, you can now stream a whole load of Sony Studios movies as part of your PS Now membership. Yeah, so it's not just the games on Sony now. You're now getting movies. So are they starting to are they thinking the Netflix world?
Yeah, just general entertainment, which is funny because Netflix are now thinking of going into the gaming world.
Well, and another topic on this acquisition point, which we won't get into for now. Let's see if it develops. But there was a big rumor last week that Bob Iger at Disney was being encouraged by Disney executives to start thinking about buying or getting more into the gaming world. And there was a serious connection with EA. There were the idea of Disney buying EA.
Disney
which
buying
would be which would be interesting because Disney's also been heavily rumoured as a target for Apple in years gone by. So who knows? Does Disney buy EA and then Apple buys Disney, and everyone just ends up being one of 3 or 4 corporations?
Apple buys Disney. That's
been strongly rumoured more than once.
Really? That's just wild. Yeah. Maybe that's their route to.
Can you imagine?
Apple's route to gaming is waiting for Disney to buy EA, and then
when Disney bought Marvel and bought Star Wars, I was like, okay, that's my childhood all under one roof.
I know.
If
crazy,
Apple then buys Disney, I mean, basically that's me.
That's your dream. Yeah,
it's a stream corporation. That is.
You're just all under one
left.
banner.
They own everything I care about.
If you weren't an Apple fanboy before, you would be now.
Anyway. Let's move on to our next topic. We're going to switch from Microsoft to Sony. And they finally, we talked about this, didn't we? Again, a few episodes ago, probably a couple of months back now, the PS5 Slim.
Yeah, finally here. We've seen it's on the official PlayStation blog, so we know it's official. These aren't kind of leaks or anything like that. So they've got the renders on the platform as well, and we'll include the links so you can check those out to see what they look like. And they do look much slimmer, and as you would expect. I don't actually think they're called the PS5 Slim, are they? It's just the new design. I couldn't see anywhere in the article that says Slim, but I mean it is much slimmer. I think they've touted in the article that it's 30% smaller in volume, 18% in weight, or 24 respectively, depending on the digital or the disc version. So it is smaller.
It's really weird because from a timing perspective, and this is a minor thing, but so it's not that long ago they started doing coloured faceplates for the PS5.
Yeah.
And they've just released the Sony Spider-Man 2 PS5 Special Edition with the limited edition covers. We talked about that again a couple of episodes ago. And now they've changed the design, and those covers will be redundant because they don't fit on this new design. And the new design,
we'll have to get new covers.
But they're in multiple parts. So that black stripe down the side, as you can see it on the picture. So for those who aren't watching, it looks very much like a PS5. It's slightly shorter, slightly smaller, but it hasn't changed radically in terms of its look and feel. It's got the same router look that it's always had. But now it's got this kind of like diagonal stripe going down the middle of the case, which is where the cover splits. Now, I don't know if that whole thing is removable. I know the lower half on the one side is, which we'll talk about because there's some variation to these. But I don't know if the whole thing actually can come off. They've only shown pictures, I believe, of the disk drive side being removable.
Well, you would assume that there would be, because, I mean, the full plates on the other one, on the previous version was, and replaceable and customizable. So I'm assuming they would do the same thing on this. But you're right, it's 4 parts instead of 2, as the previous one.
And I wonder though. I mean, so it'd be interesting. You're probably right, and I'm sure when these things are in the wild, there'll be teardowns on YouTube and people pulling them apart, and we'll find out very quickly whether those panels do come off. But it wouldn't be unusual for a game developer to introduce some sort of customization like that and then remove it in an iteration that follows. If you look back to the 360 came with interchangeable front plates. And that was like a whole gimmick. And then they revised the 360 twice in its life, and both those revisions did away with interchangeable front plates.
True.
So it'd be interesting. And PlayStation 5 now, we forget it is 3 years old this Christmas.
Yeah.
So, which blows my mind really that it's been around that long.
It's because COVID's a blur.
But it took them 2 years to get to the point where they started actually doing Sony branded interchangeable plates. What they ended up doing was shutting down a bunch of third parties who tried to make their own.
I know. You see D-Brand, just as a random aside. D-Brand is the company that did their own. And they released them before Sony did. And they got like a bunch of cease and desist letters from them. And in retaliation, D-Brand, how the print on the inside of the plates usually has the PlayStation logo. Like the little PlayStation logos. It was the words from the cease and desist letter that was written on the inside of the plates on the side. They're so salty, but I love it.
Fair
play. They do loads of stuff like that. Like they did like a cover for the Steam Deck, and they called it Project Kill Switch, as in kill the Switch. So they throw a load of shit in the market. But anyway.
So one of the rumours in the build-up to the PlayStation 5 Slim, or whatever we're calling it now, the new PS5, was the idea of a detachable disk drive.
Yes.
So I've talked at length a few times on this podcast, but also privately to you, Robbie, about the poor decision I made in buying the all-digital edition PS5. I rectified that a few months ago, and I now have a disc edition. But if this had been the case when I bought mine, I could have remedied that much more easily. So now, if you want to, you can buy all digital for a little bit less. We cover prices in a second. And then you can add the disk drive in later on, which is an interesting move.
Yeah, and a really cool design for it. When I heard those rumors originally, I was thinking of like a crappy USB dongle that you would stick in, like these old disk drives that you might get for laptops that didn't have disk drives. I was picturing that, which would look hugely like ugly. But this design actually is really quite clever. So the Slim has the bottom half of the plate that's just, flush all the way down, but you can replace that with a different plate that sticks out much further and has space for this attachable disk drive that you can plug in. And I believe as well, reading the article, it's not just the disk drive you get with this expansion, you also get an extra terabyte of storage with the kind of additional disk drive as well. And so, you could convert it yourself for, and I think I've got the price of the conversion. It's an additional.
Really I did not know you got an extra terabyte of storage. Is that true?
Oh,
I've not read that. I mean, I'm not doubting you if that's what you've read in the blog, but that seems because I'm only saying that now because if I go on Amazon and I look for a 2 terabyte drive for my PS5, it's nearer to £200 than £100. So to expand, to double my console storage, now I get that I'm buying a 2 terabyte, not a 1, before anyone jumps on me in the comments. But I'm just surprised that they can do a disk drive and the outer shell, because of course they'll have to provide that additional shell piece, that panel to accommodate your disk drive, and a terabyte of storage. So is that baked into the disk drive?
To be honest, it depends.
Or the unit?
I can't tell how this article is worded. It's quite confusing. So it says the same technology features that make PS5 the best play are packaged in a smaller form factor, along with an attachable Ultra HD Blu-ray disc drive and a 1 terabyte SSD for more internal storage. So I don't know whether it comes with the attachable.
No, I think that's meant. So I think that is just the console coming with 1 terabyte, which is weird.
Ignore
because
me then.
I saw a load of. I was going to say that seems like a very good deal for £100 because otherwise the disc drive is not a good deal.
Have you seen how cheap SSDs are these days?
Yeah, but I mean, if you looked at how not cheap ones are that are good enough for these consoles. So if you go and look to upgrade your Xbox by 1 terabyte, you're looking at nearly £180 for the bespoke.
So you get
a little cartridge thing that they've done, and then it's cheaper for a PS5, but you've got to take the whole thing apart and rip the old one out. You can't just drop another one in. So the big fuss here has been everyone saying the PS5 now comes with 1 terabyte storage, and what a great upgrade. Well, the other version has like 850, 900 gig. It's not like it's.
Oh, that's what I was confused about. I thought it already had 1 terabyte in the previous one. So that's,
so I thought so as well, and I thought just a lot of it was being used by the operating system. But I don't know what the truth is here. But you only get about 850 gigabytes of actual storage in the console. Yeah. So the 1 terabyte hard drive it's not radically different to the current PS5.
No.
Basically, this is as you'd expect. It's a mid-console, slimmed-down version. I think some people are quite disappointed from what I read in terms of the press, because it's not really doing anything different. If it had come with a 2 terabyte hard drive, then that would have been an upgrade. And there might be a reason for an enthusiast to sell their current PS5 and buy this, because you're going to get more built-in storage and you want the latest thing and blah, blah, blah. But actually, there's really no reason to buy this. You're no better off with this.
There's no...
And actually, in fact, you're worse off, because I'm pretty sure in that article it will also mention that the stand that allows you to put your PS5 into vertical mode, for want of a better word, doesn't come in the box. You have to buy that separately.
50 quid.
Does it say £50? Right, so let's just wind our minds back to the release of the first PS5. So the all-digital edition in the UK was just under £400, £399, and the disc edition was £500, so it's like £100 difference. And you got the stand, whichever version you bought, and of course there was no upgradable option here for a disc drive. Now, can you remind me, what was the price for the all-digital?
The price for the all-digital is $389, I believe.
$389, is it?
Yeah.
Just double check that. So $389 in the UK. And they're all over the place, by the way, aren't they, which was in this blog. So I still think there's a bit of a question mark here, because the conversions between the different
different
countries, currencies are very weird. So $389, so it's £10 cheaper than it was at launch 3 years ago. But you don't get the stand. But you can buy the stand for £50. So if you bought the stand and the all digital, you're £40 out of pocket. How much is the full fat disc drive edition? $479.
Yeah.
So again, £20 cheaper, although to be fair, they are now $479 anyway. They had a slight price drop. So $479, you don't get the stand, but you do get the disc drive. So add the stand in for another £50, you're again £20 or £30 out of pocket, at least from the original launch price, if not a bit more if you consider that the normal PS5 has now taken a drop. Also, as far as I'm aware, none of these come with games.
Oh, sorry. I read the wrong price for the stand. That was the side price. These are the stand prices. It's £25, but still.
Oh, it's still not so bad then. Not so bad.
Still more expensive than the original, I guess.
It's still more expensive, and I don't think they're going to come bundled with games at the moment. That may be wrong. Or they're usually slightly inflated in price. I bought my disc edition with Ragnarok as part of the price. No additional cost. It was a digital code that came with it. But the bigger gripe here is, and remind me, what is the disc drive price in the UK? Because it's all over the place. So based on which currency you look at.
So it's £99 to buy the disc drive upgrade, but $79 and 119 euro.
So which is weird, because I'm sure I read it was $99. But anyway, so £99 for the disc drive. So if you buy the all digital without the stand, without the disc drive, you're paying $389. The disc drive is $415. Sorry, the stand is $415. The disc drive is then $515. You might as well have just bought the bloody full fat one at the start. I just don't know who's doing that. I don't know why they've made that modular. I think they'd have been better off. If the idea here is the option to go from digital to disc if you wanted it, if you felt like you'd made a mistake or something, they should have just released a, as you said, some crappy USB 3 Blu-ray drive that could have been attached to any digital edition console, because all they've done here is further alienate original digital owners, because those digital owners have got no upgrade path, no choice but to sell.
I do wonder though who the target audience for this though, because I thought traditionally the Slim was the more budget friendly, the entry for people who are not the original, the early adopters for like the original versions of the consoles. And typically a bit cheaper and modular, so you could start out cheaper. I don't know. I feel like it's a different target audience. It's not obviously targeting people who already have a PlayStation. It's not really an upgrade path. There's nothing new in here for people to want to move to. But I think it's an easier onboarding for people who are yet to get into the PlayStation kind of ecosystem. And so for me personally, I actually like the look of this. I know it's not radically different from the original, and in some areas more expensive, but I might get the digital and see how I go, because I've got a bunch of digital games, and then I might upgrade it later. And I don't need a stand, don't need a vertical stand. And I'm sure there'll be third-party ones that are cheaper as well.
Well, I don't use mine now. Mine's wall-mounted, and the wall mount cost me less than that stand does. So
exactly.
It's far more practical. The interesting thing, though, So I know when we talked about this before, you said you were waiting either for the Slim revision or a Pro.
Mm.
Now, the dates that we were kind of hearing on the web were that the Slim was this year. This has obviously become true.
Yes.
And the Pro
so I
was
should
next
mention
year.
then the releases in November in the US and the rest of the world kind of shortly after, I imagine.
Yeah, so this is coming this year. The Pro, we assume, is still on track to appear next year. And I don't know whether this is laying the sort of foundations for the Pro in terms of the hardware revision or what that revision might look like. I mean, if you can bolt a disk drive on, could you bolt other accessories on? If so, what might they be? I don't know. Could you get some big sort of combined smart drive that allows you to offload your games, like, because you can do this with like an external hard drive. You can attach an external hard drive now and offload all of your games. And if they're PS4 games, you can run them from the external hard drive. If they're PS5, then they can just sit there and then be copied back when you need them.
Yeah.
Could there be something in that? I don't know. But I don't know. Like you said, what is the incentive to buy this? Because the other thing to say as well is, if these come to market, I've got to assume that they're going to be shipping off the old ones, or are they going to take them off the shelves? Are they going to take the price down because they're the old format? People just be shifting stock. You actually might get a better deal in buying one of the older, bulkier ones.
That's true.
And a bundle of games.
I wonder if there is any performance difference with this thing, because really, what is the incentive?
Well, that's it. I mean, all the stuff I've listened to and read is that people are just saying, what's the point? If you haven't bought one, yes. So in your position, you might as well buy the nicest, newest version.
Yeah, but even
if you've
then,
got one already,
to get
what's
the
the
original.
point? Well, yeah, potentially. And my plea to you is, please don't do the digital, because you'll end up paying more. Genuinely, the biggest annoyance for me, the reason for going for the disc drive, is that the PlayStation Store, not Microsoft, the PlayStation Store is the only place you can buy digital. Unless they've changed that policy, which I don't think they've announced they have, then you are still, if you buy all digital, you are locked into PlayStation's high and remaining high full RRP prices. Every brand new AAA game is £70, no questions asked. Reductions in price of 50%, big discount, still takes that game down to 35, which still feels quite a lot for what are at that point old games. You go into your local CEX, which most people will tell you are not the best place in terms of prices. Go on eBay, go on Amazon. You can get PS5 disc games, especially like older ones, for far more reasonable prices. So, like if you're going to get into it 3 years down the line, there's a whole library of games you haven't played that if you have a disc edition, you can go and buy much cheaper than you'll buy in digital. So, I don't know. I get the appeal of all digital, and it's where we're going, let's be honest, and I'm going to have a good old rant about that in a minute. It's a perfect segue. But there's just the overall cost. It's going to cost you a lot more. You're going to, you said it's a better entry level, almost all digital for someone getting into the ecosystem.
Especially because you can upgrade later.
It might well be, but then you're going to pay more straight off the bat because you can't get access to that back catalogue of the 2 or 3 year old games that are already out there without paying an absolute fortune for them all digital. But
yeah,
I can imagine the all digital might be useful if you're one of these people who has multiple consoles around your house or in different houses, and you buy digital and then you can play it in multiple places or in multiple rooms. I can see the value then of having an all digital for less, because you're not transporting those games around. They're everywhere. But if you've just got the one, like I guess most people will have, I'm not sure that there is any long-term benefit to going discless at this point. Anyway, that's enough about PlayStation. I wanted to finish the episode by having a little rant.
Bring it on.
So, I apologise because a week or so ago I had every intention of doing a bit of streaming. Robbie was busy, but I thought I was going to hop on and I was going to have a bit of a chat and play a new game that I'd picked up. I picked up Street Fighter 6. I got it in CEX, actually got it at a reasonable price. And I thought I would pop that in and have a go. Now, my memories of Street Fighter go right back to the Super Nintendo, Robbie, so I am of the age of popping in Street Fighter 2 Turbo into the SNES and jumping in, picking from my 8 or 10 characters and just getting stuck into, a bit of Street Fighter back and forth. One-on-one, good old fighting fun. And I guess that was my expectation, sticking Street Fighter in. I honestly haven't bought a traditional fighting game in quite a long time.
Yeah.
I think the last thing I dabbled with was one of the more recent Mortal Kombat releases when it was on Game Pass, but I didn't play it for very long and my expectations were low. So I haven't bought one for quite a while. I bought this because it had reviewed well at the time, and I thought I'd pop it in and have a bit of a play. And my thought process was stick it in, install it, come back on half an hour later. I know these things take time, and be ready to play. So let me tell you a little bit about what actually happened and why I have a grief and why I believe that modern gaming sucks. So first of all, as I said, you have to install the game. Pretty standard these days. However, that still frustrates me that, you've got the game on a disc and you have to spend ages installing it and then downloading the patches.
Man. They're too big. You can have like a 100 gigabyte game on a disc.
and I guess these days, you're installing it onto these super fast drives, so you've got no choice. The console simply can't run them from the disc anymore. So fine, that's just a headache we have to deal with. And there was a multiple gigabyte patch, which my PlayStation downloaded at the same time as installing the game. So when the game's in, though, the first thing it does is it prompts you as part of the install to choose these two add-ons. One is called World Tour and one is called Breaking Ground. It doesn't give you descriptions to what they are. And it wasn't immediately obvious either that I hadn't got the space on my drive to install them. Now, this is another gripe for a separate rant, but as it's got a bunch of digital VR games on it and a handful of installed AAA games, but like most people these days, you get 3 or 4 big chunky 100 gig games on and your drive's basically spent. So I hadn't got the space I needed to install those 2 games, and it kind of bounced me out, and I left the game to install. I thought I'll pick it up later. How big a deal can these extra add-ons be? So the game is installed, it patches itself, and then it starts. I don't know, it felt like loads, but the usual, accept this policy, accept that policy, just frustrates me that those have to be in now. I'm sure there's lots of legal reasons for it, but it just, again, I think back to the memories of sticking Street Fighter into the Super Nintendo. None of that stuff was a problem. It just got straight in and you could play within, a minute you'd be in a game. So now we're in the game menu. There are 3 game options. It's presented in like 3 columns. The one in the middle is kind of where they're trying to push you to, and it's this hub world for online play. And then the other 2 are World Tour and Breaking Ground, which hadn't clocked to me as to what they were initially. So I went straight for the first one that it defaulted to and just thought, well, let's go and have a look at what this is. Turns out it's a hub world. I'm going to be introduced to this character creator screen. But before I can do that, I have to create a Capcom ID to link to my PS ID. Because this is crossplay, every crossplay game now, of course, needs its own secondary ID process in which to match you up across platforms, where your PS ID used to be that very, very thing, your gamer tag. Now you need multiple ones of these. So I had to go through the pain of doing that. So I get a QR code. I have to scan the QR code, pull the phone out, and I begin creating my Capcom ID. Then I'm dipping off to my email to verify my email. That was a pain in the arse. Once that's done, I have to log back into the Capcom ID and connect it to my PS ID. So then I have to log into my PS ID. That also has multi-factor authentication, so I'm going to know the cycle of that login. And then eventually I return to the game, ready to go. Accounts are linked. But because I've gone through all this pain outside the game then needs to restart because it wants to reload based on my now newly connected PS ID and Capcom ID. So the game closes, restarts itself, I get a boatload of loading screens, and I eventually am back into the hub world. I'll be honest, at this point, all I want to do is pick Ryu and do some spinny kicks and a Hadouken. I just want to get into some fighting. But no. So now I've got to create a character. I'm like, oh, why? Now, it doesn't tell you anything about why you're going to need this character or what they're for, but there's hundreds of options as these character creators have around your muscles and how cartoonish you want them to look, and your hair and your eye colour and, all these kind of crazy settings. But I took my time over it because I thought, I don't know where this character's going to be used. I assumed I might end up fighting with him at some point. Yeah. So I took my time over it. It took me about 15 minutes, probably, maybe a bit more. As I said, I only did that because I thought I might need him. Otherwise, I'd have just rushed through it, to be honest. Once I'm in, I then get a tutorial of how to move around this arena and how to interact with the random characters that are walking around it and how to go and get into a fight at various arcade machines where I can go and wait for a game. And I somehow, I genuinely right now don't know how, but I stumbled into a tutorial on how to play the actual game. And the first thing it says is, have you got any Street Fighter experience? So I said, yes. I have played a Street Fighter before. I know how this works. Thinking it's going to fast track me through the tutorial. And then it still proceeded to tell me how to literally do the most basic of moves. Literally move forward, move backwards, throw a punch, throw a kick. And it took ages to get past all of that before it eventually showed me some of the new stuff that was in Street Fighter 6, like the various power bars that did lots of different things in the fight. And then finally, I'm kind of out of that and I'm ready to go. So I've got the basics down. I've got this custom character. I'm wandering around this hub world with no idea what I'm doing. And but I didn't want to fight online. That wasn't what I haven't even had a single go of this game yet. I'm not going to throw myself into a versus match with someone who's been playing this for months. So I ended up backing out of that game mode once I'd realised where I was and what was going on, and that I couldn't just get into a fight from there. And then I thought, great, I'm going to go and choose one of those two options. Let's go to World Tour, let's go to Breaking Ground. Clicked on it, and it went, you've not got this installed, you can't run this. And I went, you're taking the piss. So like literally, I can't get into the standard fighting mode on a fighting game. Like I can't get in to have a fight. So I had to then back out of the game, work out how to get back into the content that was on the disc to request those installs, having cleared some space, which wasn't simple or easy to do. Now I'm a techie, but I'm an old boy now. It shouldn't have been as painful as it was. There should have been some faster way to get into that. But you had to basically find the game, select the game, choose to manage the content, and only when you got into the manage content field would it show you what was missing. Then when you chose to install them, they start installing. But it tells you, the icon goes from not installed to installed. But you can hear the drive spinning like crazy. And I thought, oh, well, that was very quick. Maybe they were kind of already installed and they just had to be activated. I wasn't quite sure. So I went back into the game, tried to load it. It kept telling me you hadn't got the content installed. I was getting really annoyed at this point until it dawned on me that the PlayStation 5 sounded like it was about to take off and the disk drive was spinning like crazy. And I realised it was still installing that content from the disk. So
Weird.
So after fishing around in the various menus, trying to get in and out of the game, I realised that at this point, there is literally no way to play this game based on the absolute most default of install. If you didn't install World Tour and Groundbreaking and you didn't want to play online, you cannot fight in Street Fighter 6. There's just nothing to do. Once I'd installed them, World Tour turned out to be this slightly weird kind of open world story mode where you walk up to randomers in the street and challenge them to a fight, and everyone you talk to will accept a fight, and they're all varying levels of difficulty, and it's a bit weird. It's not bad. And I will say the gameplay is actually very good. The fighting's as good as it's ever been. It's Street Fighter. It's exactly what you wanted. So I'm not knocking the game when you finally get into it. My rant here is just how ridiculously complicated it has become to put in a game that is as simple in premise as a fighting game.
Yeah.
It should just be in, fight, go. If I've not played the game before, the first thing the game I would have thought should expect me to want to do is to learn how to play.
Yeah.
And to fight offline. In this mode, it's online first. Everything is focused around the online. You can't accidentally not install the online. That's the core install. But you can accidentally not install the single-player campaign and then the suite of other features, which is kind of like your local head-to-head, your training mode, your just arcade-style fighting, when you want to work through the characters' stories. All of those modes are optional installs. The only thing that is mandatory is the online hub world.
It's clear where they want you to go first then.
So that's my very long way of saying modern gaming sucks. And I found that whole experience really frustrating. And as a result, I'll be honest, I've played about half an hour of actual Street Fighter 6 and I've not gone back. I will do it at some point, but I'm not going to stream it now. It's just really frustrated me. It left me disappointed because as someone who's time poor, I lost probably 2+ hours.
I was going to ask how long that took. 2 hours. That's
at least a couple of hours. And, I was kind of having to get up and wait for things to happen. So it wasn't 2 hours of me sitting there, with a controller in hand. There was the installs, the updates, faffing my phone to link an account, going back in, trying to work out how to install it, realising I had to install it and leaving it, So I think all in, I probably wasted about 2 hours to get to the point where I could actually have a standard fight in a fighting game.
Yeah.
And I think that to me is just stupid.
It's a lot of games like that,
consumer friendly.
A lot of games like that. I actually had a similar experience years ago trying Mortal Kombat 11. It wasn't quite as difficult and as long, but I remember thinking that I used to play Mortal Kombat quite a lot growing up, and it was like, as you say, you just put it in and you either go straight into the arcade or there might be some kind of story mode that you could do, but you're like straight into the game very quickly. Whereas the Mortal Kombat that I played, it took a while to get into the game, and then when you're in the game, you were forced into a story mode. You couldn't play anything else, and the story mode was this really kind of rough tutorial, and it was a story that you didn't care about really. And even when you got into the game later, they forced you into these really specific storyline fights. Like you couldn't choose like your own characters, and you couldn't choose who you're fighting against. And that's not always what you want. Sometimes you want a bit of variety, but to be forced into this kind of thing really early on without having any autonomy over the type of game that you want to play, especially because it's radically different to the original games, then I don't know. So I agree. There's a lot of assumptions, I think, on the developers' part as to what they want or what people want to actually play in these games. And for those who have played any of the previous games, they're just very different. And I don't think the original fans appreciate it. Yeah.
And to be honest, this hub world just felt entirely necessary. I genuinely, other than seeing other people's custom characters, and I should say that my custom character was the character that I ended up using in that World Tour mode. Yeah. So had I installed World Tour and gone there first, I'd have been prompted to create the character then, and then he'd have come over to the hub world. So that tutorial, that process, you're doing it once somewhere. But the actual hub world was just pointless. It was just really weird, and I just want to find a game online if and when I get to that point. But surely the first thing that no one is doing with these games is diving straight into the online. And the fact that was the one mode that it didn't give me the option to not install, and that the disk prompt only asked me to install the other two modes, which to me are the core of the game you're buying. It just really frustrated me, and it has soured what otherwise might have been a really positive experience. The other thing I'll say is the character they've put on the front cover, which I was really confused as to why that wasn't one of the more recognisable mainline Street Fighter characters, is a very interesting character. He seems to be the centre of the World Tour mode. He has got the most ridiculous forearms I've ever seen. Like they're cartoonishly muscular in this game, so that's kind of an obvious one. But go and look it up. But you need in-game footage. Don't just look at the pictures, because in the pictures he's very muscular and cartoonish. But in-game, they just look absurd. They're more ridiculous than any of the other characters, and it's a bit like it looks like he's got two giant cooked chickens attached to his forearms. They're so stupidly big in comparison to even the rest of his frame that they just don't make any sense. It's like there's no way anyone's forearms would ever get that big compared to the rest of their body. And your character looks much more proportional, but still slightly cartoonishly muscular than this mainline dude whose name I cannot remember.
What does he look like? I'm trying to see.
He's the cover. He's literally the cover artist. So he's the character they put on the front cover. I don't know what his name is.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see any of these, but
not well enough to tell you. But yeah, go and check it out. Have a look for some footage. It's laughable how big his forearms are. He's the guy, I sent you the thumbnail that I prepared with my face on for fun for the stream that never ended up happening. Apologies again to those who would have liked to have seen that. And if you do want to see that and you've watched this far through the episode, let me know in the comments, and I've got the thumbnail done. The game is installed now. I can play it. If there's enough people who are interested, I will jump on and do a stream, and you can see how ridiculous this guy's forearms are for yourself.
It might be worth it just to see you get angry at it again. That would be worth watching the stream.
I would get angry now. It's installed. It just frustrated me. I didn't lose my rag with it. I just got really frustrated, and by the time I'd got in, I'd lost the interest. And I've said to you before, as a dad, and with a full-time job, it's hard to find time to fit gaming in, and sometimes the energy, and all of that energy and enthusiasm from it had just been sapped out of me by the time I'd gone through all of that just to play a fighting game. And to be honest, I think the biggest annoyance was it wasn't a game I was that bothered about. Yeah, it was just because I'd bought it, I wanted to have a go at it. I got it relatively cheap in terms of what I'd paid for it secondhand, and I thought I'd fancied having a go at it. And by the time I'd gone all that, I didn't fancy it anymore. I'd gone off the idea.
Left a sour taste in your mouth.
Very much so, very much so. Let's leave it on that sour note, because I think that's enough for this episode. It's been fun, something a little bit different. If you've enjoyed a more variety, or topical episode, then please let us know. This is just something we've tried. Thought it'd be interesting to combine a few sort of topical talking points rather than talking on one massive topic. We will mix it up, of course, but if you like this format, let us know and we'll do some more. Otherwise, thank you for hanging out with us. Don't forget to like and subscribe over here on YouTube if that's where you're watching us, or on any of our good podcast services that you can get us on. We do stream from time to time, although to be honest, our personal lives and diaries are a little bit mad at the moment, so don't expect to see any of those anytime soon. I am hoping that when Spider-Man 2 comes out, which is next week as we're recording it, but it'll be the day that you could be listening to this, that I might do a little bit of streaming of that, because I'm super excited to play that and I would like to share my adventures of Spider-Man 2, so I might well do that. Keep an eye out for that. Otherwise, we will see you next time.